questions, feel free to comment below. If you guys are interested in getting your own natal chart or progress natal chart readings, the information for all of that is going to be in the description box below. Welcome to everyone who is already here. I see you guys started commenting in the chat already. Hey Concern, how are you doing? You said, hey everyone, what? We're still here after the eclipse. You for sure thought that it was gonna be the end of the world. Honestly, my entire life, there's like been a pending end of the world. It's always something with these people. You said recently you brought up Dell Astrology and Women's World Astrology magazines sold at every grocery store checkout aisles in the 70s and 60s. Your mom read them regularly and you were surprised that she never discussed anything but the sun signs. But that made you wonder if those magazines talked about anything other than predictive information. It's also interesting that it was very oriented towards women. Yeah, even when I was a kid, I would look at magazines too, and I would always look at the horoscope section. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's like an inversion, just like anything else. Like even when we look at astrology the way that it is right now, like the sun sign, I mean, is gonna tell you very minimal information about a person. Like you'll learn a lot more about a person depending on the rest of the placements in the natal charts. So it's really interesting to see like that's how it was marketed. And even like when people say, I don't like this sign, I don't like that sign, like they're talking about the sun signs. Like there's just so much more to astrology than just that. You said you looked at the table of contents of one of the Dell Astrology magazines for sale on eBay, and it appears that it's more predictive than teaching how astrology works. Yeah, it's always this, like they want to make it into like a joke or something that's like not that serious or something that's like, you know, for fun. Like it's like in the entertainment section, kind of like make it like seem a little bit more less important, I guess, than it actually is, which a lot of people already have that belief system about astrology, you know, but it's so much more than that. Hey everyone, welcome. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. You said, how do I think that someone with Jupiter retrograde in Aries at 20 degrees in the natal chart will be affected by the eclipse? Okay, so I did like a mini going through the houses because it depends what house you have Aries in your natal chart. Like that's what would have been affected for you. But the thing is, like with anything in terms of transits, what you guys always want to do is you want to look at everything that's taking place, because it's like, yes, there's the eclipse, but then there's also the retrograde. So it's going to be different for everybody. If you want to know for fun, look at what house you have Aries in. And like the eclipse usually is something like being brought to the surface. It's a new moon also, right? So it's like something that you didn't get to see before and now you're seeing. So it depends what house you have Aries in. On my last live, somewhere like in the earlier part of the live, I went through all of the houses, like what that could potentially mean. And it's like, again, you have to take it with a grain of salt, right? Like it's more so for fun. You're welcome. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that my 12th house videos resonate with you. Yes, I have a bunch of other 12th house videos. You said you discovered it through the sun in the 12th house. Yes, I have a 12th house playlist. So I have a 12th house playlist / Pisces, and then I have a Scorpio / 8 house playlist, because you'll see that usually those are the people that are most into astrology. So yes, if you're interested in learning more about like how the energies work in depth, just like from my own findings, you guys can go through those playlists, and then you'll have other things in there as well for like 12th house information. You said, can I explain Aries sun, Pisces moon, and Taurus rising combination, and if possible, career? Sure. So for careers, okay, you guys want to look at the 10th house. Yes, you guys also want to look at like the combination of everything. Like when I look at someone's natal chart, I can kind of see like if there's like a pattern going on. Same thing with like your life path number, your day number, all of the houses. Like that's going to give us a lot more information as to like where your energy is going to be like more so naturally inclined, right? So like, let's say if you're like a third house person, and when I say third house person, it's usually people who have like a stellium or at least 2 third house placements, right? In combination with other things. So like, let's say you're a third house person. If you have a lot of third house energy, you're probably going to be more inclined to work in like areas where it's like communication, speaking, writing, PR, marketing, all these types of things. So it's everything you want to look at, but just based off of what you said here in terms of Aries sun, Pisces moon, Taurus rising. Pisces moon is dreamy, but Aries sun wants to be the best. And then Taurus rising is usually going to be a hard worker. Like I've seen Taurus rising progress, or like, what's the word that I'm looking for? Prosper. And a lot of like corporate careers actually, like climbing the ladder slowly, slow and steady gets, you know, wins the race. Like that's that Taurus rising energy. So it depends, right? It depends on everything else that's taking place in the natal chart. But Pisces moon could kind of be like a little bit of a struggle because you might want to do everything with that Piscean energy in there. Pisces wants to do everything, and sometimes Pisces is very artistic too. But here's the thing, like you want to see everything that's taking place in the natal chart. It's really like all the combinations, even like the aspects. But yeah, just like for a generalized type of thing, like with those three, you have to be a leader. You have to probably be working in some form of like management role, team lead for Aries. Pisces is probably going to be creative, maybe poetry, film, maybe anything to do with like anything that's like dreamy for Pisces moon. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all the people joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, and questions about your natal chart. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Joy said, someone said that looking at the eclipse would make you ugly and bring bad luck. That's not true, is it? Sorry, I don't want to laugh, but it's like, everyone has something to say, and I saw so many like fear-based posts, and it's like, honestly, just like go with your intuition. I saw like the sciencey aspect of it where it was like, don't look at it for too long because it could damage your eyes. Like there's that part of it, but like all these other things, like bad luck this, bad luck that, like honestly, I think we create our own luck in this lifetime. Like I don't think anything external can affect you unless you let it affect you. Do you know what I mean? Same thing with all these predictions, all this like, oh, this is gonna happen, that's gonna happen. It's like an eclipse happens literally every 6 months. Like there's always an eclipse. It just so happened that like some people were able to see this one based on where they live. So definitely overhyped, because I even got like, I don't know if you guys know the app like Lyft, like it's like Uber, but like another company. And it's like, I even got like a notification from them where it was like, oh, catch your ride for the eclipse. And I'm just like, okay, like this is hitting too much of the mainstream. And as soon as something is too much in the mainstream, you know there's some sort of nefarious activity that's taking place there. So take what people say with a grain of salt in terms of like the fear mongering and just like the things that they say, like this is negative, that's negative. Like it's up to you. Use your own intuition. Do you know what I mean? If you have like a bad vibe, then don't do it. You know, if you did it, I don't think like anything's gonna happen, you know? So that's the way that I see things. I don't do astrological predictions. Hey, welcome. I don't do any predictions. If you have any questions about your overall natal chart, you can look up your natal chart on any of the astrology websites. So you can go on astro.com, AstroSeek, Astro Cafe, like there's so many of them. Or you can just go on Google and type in like birth chart and it'll give you a bunch of websites. So you can look it up there and then come back here if you have any questions pertaining to your overall natal chart. You said you remember it was your parents who hyped up the sun for you and now they look at you weird when you talk about astrology. Yeah, there's just so much more. You said to find career, would I recommend using the natal or the progressive? Are you talking about secondary progressions? Yeah, you can use both. You can use both because it's like the secondary progressions is who you have evolved to. Hey, Kay, this is how you guys can look at like the secondary progressions in a natal chart. The original natal chart, you can kind of look at it as like the core of who you are. The progressed natal chart is an added energy on top. So when you have both of these energies taking place, you can look at the original natal chart and then you can look at the progressed version of the natal chart. So you can look at both. Thanks for the likes, you guys. Yeah, okay, so I reposted that video where I talked about like the following or what kind of following would you guys have based on your 11th house. So Capricorn in the 11th house, so the types of people. So here's the thing, okay, when you guys have a sign in your 11th house, it could tell you about your friends, yes, but it can also tell you about like, let's say you guys were posting online, it would tell you the audience or like the people that are interested in your type of work, right? Or whatever you're posting online. And then you guys can take advantage of that, right? If you guys want to post online or whatever, let's say it's even like you're writing a book, like anything that involves like an audience, okay? Because that's kind of like that 11th house energy. So when you have Capricorn in your 11th house, it doesn't mean that people are all Capricorns, okay? It just means like they have Capricorn types of traits. So what is Capricorn? Capricorn is all about finance, building, getting the wealth, social status, getting the gains, getting the money, all these types of things, okay? So that's all Capricorn. So people who will be interested in your stuff will be Capricorn S types of people, hustlers, people who are like, you know, like the girl boss or like wanting to get to the top, like these types of people, like hardworking types of people would be interested in your work, okay? When you have Capricorn in your 11th house. So then you can cater to them. You know, it depends obviously on the rest of your natal chart and the combinations once again with the rest of the placements in your natal chart, but that's the overall idea with the 11th house. So you guys can kind of take advantage of the energy in your chart. Because like now knowing this, like now knowing that like the people who are interested in your type of work are Capricorn types of people, like people who are about status, material things, the gains, the wealth, all these types of things, like you can target toward them, right? Or like market toward them. I am very quick. Okay, my big three. Let's see if you can guess. If some of you guys already know, don't tell the other people. I like to see what people guess. Okay, try to guess my big three. So my sun, moon, rising. And then, yeah, you also want to know my Mercury. Yeah, try to guess. Try to guess. Let's see what you guys, what the vibe is. You said your husband fell 3 times on his knees in less than 5 days. Started on the 4th of March. You can't help but think that is the eclipse, and he's a Sag rising. Okay, the eclipse is going through, it could be Mercury retrograde too. That could be like adding to that. It could also be other transits as well. It doesn't necessarily just have to be the eclipse. Here's the thing too, to understand with the eclipse, okay? With everything that's taking place. Here is also the thing. Now, so many more people are like learning about these types of things. So like they're feeding into the energy. I hope that makes sense. So it's like, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing, right? Because like, it's good to have the awareness, but it's like sometimes people feed into the energy and it's like a fear-based type of energy. So it's like up until the eclipse, literally, like I was just like walking around and I was like, oh my gosh, like the vibes are so, first of all, eerie. It felt very eerie. And it also felt very pent up is really what that is. And it's like, there's also that aspect of it too. So like with him falling, for example, right? There's all these things that are like taking place now. And some of the things are like man-made too, right? To just like invoke fear and basically try to bring down the frequency. Because honestly, one thing what I will say to you guys energetically, what I picked up on is like with this eclipse, like we energetically shifted into like a completely different like beginning energetically, like a new start energetically is really, really what that feels like. Like we've already been in that energy, like is what I feel like. It's just like a lot of people keep playing out the old energies is really, really what that is. That's why you need to figure out like using astrology, like what are maybe your beliefs or like things that have energetically been imposed on you that you're like unconsciously playing out, because the old way of being is done, right? Like it's finished. I actually picked up on that like around the time when Pluto went into Aquarius, like that era is finished. You know, even when you look at like these days, a lot of people, or maybe it's just my feed, are posting like nostalgic types of videos or like videos like from the 90s and like the 80s. And it's like, to me, it feels like a completely different dimension. Do you know what I mean? So like we've actually like dimensionally shifted, but it's like we keep shifting, right? So it's like with all these changes, it's like, first of all, there's the frequency aspect of things that could be impacting people, in your case, your husband who fell, but it could also just be like the collective. Do you know what I mean? Because like the collective is like kind of anticipating something, and then you have the unaware people who don't know what's going on, and then they're feeding into it. So like there's just so much going on energetically. Oh, don't be nervous. You said you're nervous. You have no clue. You said sun, air, fire, rising, air, moon. Really? You said you want to say, Scorpio or Mercury, Gemini, and then Mercury, gotta have a house, air. Okay. So I'll tell you guys, 1 second. I just want to see if anybody else guessed. Let's see. Okay. So my sun is in Libra. My moon is in Scorpio. This is in the Placid tropical system. Okay. My moon is in Scorpio. My rising is also in Libra. My Mercury is also in Libra, okay? My sun and my Mercury are in the 12th house, and then my moon is in the 1st house. And then also I have Uranus, because you also guessed Aquarius moon, or you said you felt Aquarius energy too. I have Uranus aspecting most of the things in my chart. And then what else? And then my 3rd house is in Sag. So maybe that's also where you pick up on the fire energy. But yeah, that's pretty much that. So yeah, let's see what else you guys seeing in here. You said, would I recommend using, okay, I already answered that one. Let's see, you're welcome. Can I explain about a house that is in 2 zodiac signs? You said you think that I said something about it being in the shadow. Okay, maybe you're thinking about interceptions. So, okay, when you have, and this is in the Placid tropical system, you have interceptions. I have a video on this as well if you guys want to learn more. It's under the miscellaneous playlist, because then I go through all of the, I'm pretty sure I go through the intercepted signs. I don't think I go through the intercepted houses. Anyways, so the way that it works is, and for the first time I saw someone's chart and they actually had 2 interceptions, but I'm not going to confuse you guys with that, okay? So just like a regular interception is when you have 2 signs occupying a total of 4 houses, okay? So let's say you have Gemini in your 1st and your 2nd house, and then you have Sag in your, okay, just to make it easier, let's say you have Aries in your first and your second house, and then you have Libra in your seventh and your eighth house. And let's say you're missing a sign, okay? So you're missing a sign because it's sandwiched. Let's say that sign is Taurus, for example. So then let's say like in this chart, right? Your second house is Aries, and then your third house would be Gemini, and then Taurus is quote unquote missing. It doesn't have a house, right? And then the oppositional sign is also going to be missing energetically, right? So then that would be Scorpio, also missing. So with that being said, now Taurus is sandwiched between Aries in the second house and then Gemini in that second house, Gemini in that third house, okay? So to understand this now, you want to see Taurus, okay? So Taurus is missing. What's preceding Taurus? The sign before Taurus is Aries. So technically Taurus would be in the second house intercepted, okay? And then the oppositional energy is also intercepted. So that means Scorpio in the eighth house is intercepted, okay? So now that you have these two signs intercepted, what I was saying, probably what you're referring to is like when you have an intercepted sign, okay? It's swallowed up in your chart. A lot of the time you'll see, not always, but sometimes you will see people who have placements intercepted as well. Now, what I've noticed with people's charts is like a lot of the time, if they do have placements intercepted, so like let's say you have Moon in Scorpio and it's in the eighth house. Now that Moon is intercepted as well. It's swallowed up in your chart. It's intercepted, okay? So that means the energy can come through at strange times, because it's like the whole concept of interceptions is like when you're growing up, the energy is not acknowledged. It's not appreciated. Maybe the parents are different. Maybe you're like different than the family. Like it's stuff like this. It always starts with the two caregivers, okay? So with that being said, now you have Scorpio. So you have the money access intercepted, and it's in the money houses, right? Taurus in the second house and Scorpio in the eighth house. So that probably means when you were growing up, maybe there wasn't a focus on money. Maybe you didn't learn about money. Maybe nobody talked about money. So you don't know how to manage money. This is why a lot of the time what I've noticed is like when you have something that's intercepted or like you're unaware of it, it goes into the shadow first. That's just how it is down here on this earth plane. Unfortunately, okay, because it's like the unconscious is so strong. So you want to master that. So same thing, like let's say you now have Moon in Scorpio and it's in the eighth house intercepted. Well, like this could be playing like a huge role, maybe like holding you back in terms of progressing in life, or just like maybe you're emotionally unavailable, but you're meant to be in tune with your emotions. Maybe you're meant to be in tune with your psychic gifts and abilities. So it's stuff like this. I go more in depth in that video if you want to know for each of the intercepted signs, but that's the overall idea with interceptions. Hey, Scorpio Realm, how are you doing? What's up? What's up, everybody? I'm answering questions about your natal charts, astrology, and metaphysics. So if you have anything you guys want to know about, comment below. Oh my gosh, you said you're a Libra sun and Libra 8th Mercury. I love it. You said you felt that air Scorpio energy. Yeah. Also, if you look at my secondary progressions, a lot of my Libra energy has progressed into Scorpio, and then a lot of my Scorpio has progressed into Sag. So there's that too. And at one point, all of my personal planets were in Scorpio. So that was a lot of fun. Let's see what else you guys are saying in here. I'm glad that made sense. Aquarius rising, welcome. I love Aquarius risings. Aquarius risings and Uranus in the first house, like the most non-judgmental people. They literally always have like a plethora of like different types of friends. Like literally people from all walks of life. Like that's Aquarius rising, and you yourself are going to be unique. So Mars, Pluto, Venus, Mercury, Chiron, all in the 8th house. Pisces, and then you said Virgo, Jupiter in the 2nd house. What does that mean? Well, that's intense. So that's a lot of shadow work, probably mediumship abilities. Basically here to uncover the shadows. So you're probably gonna be super passionate about just like bringing things to the surface. Like when someone's hiding something, like you always want to expose them. Like you always want to be like, you're saying this, or you're doing this, or it's like, you did it because of this. Like you see through people is really what that is when you have all of that going on in there. Now, with that being said, now you also have Mars and Pluto in there. So that could just be like intense energy in terms of maybe the father is usually the masculines in your life. So it could be like originally the father, then maybe like the masculines throughout your life. Like that's intense energy, but it's like aggression. So that could have taken place with you, or now you possess that energy within, but it's like that energy can be so passionate, right? So when it comes to like going after your goals, you can be super passionate. The thing is, having all of that in Pisces, like Pisces is gonna kind of like subdue it. Do you know what I mean? Like Pisces is more of like a dreamer. The 8th house is like, okay, let's go, you know? So having all of that like in the divine version is so awesome, because it's like when you take like the passion of the 8th house, and like after you've cleared all of like the lower vibrational things like traumatic experiences, all these types of things, and you pair it with the Pisces like manifestation, it's like manifesting like left, right, and center if you're actually acting on it, you know. But sometimes Pisces can kind of just like go into just like escaping through the mind, dreaming, oh my gosh, when it's like this, when it's like that, these types of things. Okay, so that's that. So a lot of energy work with that too. Like you could be like an energy healer. You could just be like naturally transmuting things for people. You could attract a lot of dark people into your life, especially because you have Venus in the 8th house. That's intense. A lot of dark people with a lot of problems. Yeah, so you can definitely choose like whether you want to engage with them or not. So like, here's the thing. This is the way that I see 8th house. When the 8th house or Scorpio energy is unevolved, you merge with the people, and like unconsciously you might take on like their shadows, or just like you might get into like a Plutonian dynamic with these people where it's like, it's intense, it's like this, I love you, I hate you, like very tumultuous. But when it's in like the divine version or like the elevated version of Scorpio 8th house, it's like, it's literally a mirror, right? So you're standing in your power and you're like aware, like let's say you attract someone like, or whatever, someone's attracted to you into your life, whether it's a friend or a lover or whatever. And this person is coming at you with darkness. Like if you have strong boundaries, you're actually going to be able to reflect it back to them. That's why a lot of the time, like the 8th house or Scorpio energy can come off like intimidating to people. But I feel like what they're like intimidating is like the reflection back. Do you know what I mean? It's probably fear that the other person already has in them. I hope that makes sense. Hey everyone, welcome. How are you guys? Oh my gosh, thank you, Concerned. Yes, if you guys want your own natal chart reading or progressed natal chart reading, it's going to be in the description box below. It's going to be on my website underneath the readings tab. An email window is going to pop up, and then we'll go from there. Send me an email for which reading you want, and then I give you all the information. And then the turnaround time always varies depending on how busy I am. Jupiter in the 2nd house, that is a wealth placement. And I like Jupiter and Virgo, like they say it falls here, but it's good for getting jobs. Like Jupiter and Virgo can get a job within 2 months, I find. Like they're very like quote unquote lucky in that area. Like you can get jobs quickly. You can like get away with a lot when it comes to your jobs. You're also very lucky when it comes to your health when you have Jupiter and Virgo. Obviously like not taking advantage of that, because like Jupiter, I find like Jupiter energy in a natal chart like kind of has like the limit. Do you know what I mean? Like you want to be able to like teeter on the edge or like taking advantage of the luck energy, but if you push it overboard, that is just like, it's not going to bless you with the luck anymore. I hope that makes sense. That's like if you're really going into like heatedism and like really taking advantage of the energy. So what do I mean by that? Like let's say Jupiter and Virgo, it's like sometimes this energy can like, let's say, get away with, I'm not condoning this behavior, okay? I'm just giving you guys an example. But it's like this energy can get away with like you coming into late into work every day, for example, right? But it's like, you know, you're lucky when it's like, maybe it's by accident or it happens a few times, but if it turns into like a habit, well, then it's going to be like, okay, no, like you're, you know, doing this all the time. Like this is just like a bad habit at this point. I hope that makes sense. Let's see, Mercury, Sun conjunction, 1 degree orb, super, super intellectual, all about the mind, speaking, communicating. Let's see, you say it feels like a new beginning. Absolutely. Gemini in your breakthrough. Yeah, I get Gemini a lot. I actually get Gemini a lot, but that's because I have a lot of 3rd house also in my natal chart. So that's probably where you guys pick up on that too. You said, as per Vedic system, moon in Scorpio, you should look. Is that in your natal chart? You said, wait, are you saying the 2 interceptions in your reading? No, actually interceptions, I've come across that a lot. What I was talking about earlier when I saw like the rare interception was I saw, okay, how can I explain this to you guys? Okay, so a regular interception is when you have 2 signs occupying 4 houses, and then you have 2 other signs that are sandwiched, okay? So for example, like I gave you guys Aries 1st house, Aries 2nd house, Libra 7th house, Libra 8th house. Like I see that, I don't want to say a lot, but I see it often, right? Like that's a regular interception. What I saw for the first time recently was someone who had double of that. So they had, let's say, Aries 1st house, Aries 2nd house, Taurus 3rd house, Taurus 4th house. So they had 2 interceptions. And then they had like, let's say Libra 7th house, Libra 8th house, and then they had Scorpio, let's say in the 9th and in the 10th house. And then they had 2 other signs that were sandwiched. So, well, actually, yeah, 2 other signs technically would be 4. So that's kind of like what I was seeing. I was like, wow, like this is a lot. I need to pull that chart up again just so I have it for my own reference because I don't see that often. But I don't know, maybe some of you guys have that in your natal chart. JLK said, you're a Gemini sun with a Cancer moon crushing on a girl with a Taurus sun and a Cancer moon. Your Mars and Venus are in Leo, while her Mars is in Aries and Venus is in Gemini. I mean, that could work. Gemini sun, Cancer moon, Taurus sun. The Cancer moon connection is awesome. Like when you guys have moon to moon or like the trines in the moon, like that's awesome because it's like you guys are kind of on the same page in terms of the emotional world. Mars and Venus in Leo for you, and then Mars is in Aries, Venus is in Gemini. The only thing I can say, depends obviously on the rest of the natal chart also to see what's going on, but like the only thing here could be like the Venus in Gemini might want to keep things light, but also Venus in Leo is like light, but also they're super loyal. So I don't know, because Venus in Gemini might want to date around. So it depends, like it really depends on the rest of the natal chart. Venus in Gemini is great, so is Mars in Leo. What would you like to know about? What would you like to know about Venus in Pisces with the sun? That's so interesting. I was going to give an example of Venus conjunct sun. So Venus conjunct sun is like a Venusian vibe, right? So like this person's going to be attractive, and it doesn't really matter how they look. Like there's something about them that's attractive when you have sun conjunct Venus. Like they could just be very graceful in like the way that they walk or the way that they present themselves. Sun conjunct Venus can also be a very creative person, and you have both of those in Pisces. So you could be super, super creative. You guys are so funny. I'll get to the bottom in just a second. I'm just going back up. You said, can I talk about the total solar eclipse? You lived it. Yes, everyone lived it and everyone survived. I'm so glad that that is done, that that's finished. But overall, April feels like a very intense month energetically. I was picking up on it. I talked about it at the beginning of this live, so you might want to rewind back or like rewatch later in terms of just like us going into a completely new direction collectively is really what that is. Like, here's the thing. So, okay, here's the thing. There's like two things that are taking place right now, and these are just my own opinions. These are just my own opinions. So there's two things that are taking place. There's like the energetic story of like what's actually happening, and then there's like a narrative that's trying to be pushed to pull the collective down into their lower chakras, which is like not working, okay? So something important to understand in terms of like world events and when certain things take place, like for these things to take place, there needs to be a certain amount of like collective energy feeding into that thing, okay? I hope that makes sense. So it's like sometimes what happens in terms of like people putting things out there, and I'm really talking code here, so you guys are gonna have to read between the lines, okay? So when we see something like, let's say like online or on the TV, for people who still watch TV, like a lot of the time those things are seeds being planted, okay? So with the eclipse, like there was a lot of fear mongering, right? Because they're trying to lower the vibration of the collective. But it's like, to me, energetically, the way that it feels like, it's like game over, right? The old world is done. Like the old paradigm is done. We just kind of have to have like the physical reality catch up with it. So with the old paradigm being done, like a lot of people are going to go into fear when they hear that, because a lot of people have attached a lot of their identity to that paradigm, right? But was the paradigm actually serving us? Is the question, okay? So that's what everyone has to ask themselves, right? So was that specific way of doing things actually serving anybody? Is really the question here. So, I mean, it's up to everyone, right? Like everyone can figure that out for themselves, whether it was serving people or not, but like that is finished, right? Like everything, like the way that we used to do things is done. Like everything, like I can't explain it any other way. So basically like the vibrations are very, very high, right? So also another thing that takes place is like when the vibes are high, you know, people, if they have any sort of shadow traits or just like, you know, like unresolved things, maybe unresolved experiences, these types of things, they're all going to come bubbling to the surface. And it's like also because we're elevating, right? We're going into the higher vibrations and the vibes are so high. Like me and my friends talk about this like all the time. It's like energetically, like when you take off like the lens of like people putting fear out there, and just like, it's not just like people who put it on TV, like even people who talk about it on social media, right? Like sometimes people just like put like misinformation, I guess you can say, out there, right? And then it just like picks up like pace or track or whatever, right? If you unplug from that for just a second and you look at like the energy is so high vibrational. It really, really is. So it's like now the collective has to catch up with that. So it's like, as we're going through the higher vibrations, like people aren't gonna be able to do shadowy things anymore. Like lying, like if you lie, like you're gonna get exposed within like the next day. Obviously, like I'm using kind of like an exaggerated example, right? Like that's not gonna be for everybody, you know, but it's like as you move through the high frequencies, because it is Pluto in Aquarius, overall age of Aquarius, like people are gonna have to be authentic, they're gonna have to be honest, they're gonna have to be real. So if you're a scammer, if you're a con artist, if you're tricking people, if you're lying, and here's the thing, like again, it's my Mercury in Libra, like I understand why sometimes people do that because it's like, it's a survival type of thing, right? But if it's a survival type of thing, then you have to explore that within yourself and be like, why am I in this energy, right? So it's going to be hard for those people who are in the lower vibrations, because it's like the higher up we go, especially like if you're going with the vibes, right? And it's like, you know, you're just like living in terms of your own truth and there's someone around you who's trying to trick you, like they're going to get exposed very quickly usually, is really what that is. So that's kind of what's happening. Like it's not as dense as it used to be. And the only way like I can kind of like maybe explain, or like for you guys to like see it for yourselves, is like just watch videos like from back in the day, even like the 2010s, okay? Like it's literally an accelerated change. So much to learn. Let's see, what else are you guys saying in here? North node, Pisces, second house. So you look at your south node, which is in Virgo, and it's in the 8th house. So in your past life, maybe you mastered like alchemy or energy or something of that sort, and you're coming through maybe to deliver in a more grounded way in this lifetime, because that second house is more grounded, it's more practical, especially having Pisces in there. Like it's like grounded creativity in a way in terms of your overall life purpose. So like the way that I look at North node, South node these days is like, maybe the south node is something that you mastered, but I feel like it's something that you didn't get to necessarily complete. So you come through in this lifetime to take like the knowledge that you have and apply it in like a different type of way. So it's like in a past life, maybe it was very structured for you, but maybe like in that structure, you weren't able to express like the magician aspect of yourself with that 8th house, or like the mediumship aspect of yourself, or like the occult knowledge. You come through in this lifetime, maybe you have all this knowledge, but now it's the second house. So it's like maybe you'll monetize it, or maybe you'll figure out like a way to pitch it so that the everyday person can understand. Okay, it's stuff like this. You said you have all your personal planets in Scorpio. Wow, that's like a lifetime of shadow work. And you said 2 being retrograde and 2 conjunctions with Pluto. It is fun. Yeah, you feel like Gomez and Morticia in one single person, but the retrograde versions, oh my gosh, that's intense. Yeah, it's a lot. But here's the thing also, okay? So yeah, it's a lot, and you go through a lot, and like there's a lot to transmute and whatever, right? Like, yeah, that's there. But here's the thing to understand, and what I really like about the energy, okay? So when you incarnate into this lifetime and you have, let's say, an 8th house stellium, or you have Scorpio energy, like a lot of it, or you have 12th house even, or you even have maybe Pisces energy, like anything that's like that, like creativity, right? It's like you're coming through in this lifetime. You can, especially for the 8th house, because it is the sexual energy of the 8th house, you're basically coming through in this lifetime kind of like with the extra reserves, right? Like you're coming through with like a lot of energy, right? To basically anchor in something new. Like you're coming through with a lot of creative potential, okay? Because sexual energy is creative energy, is really what that is. So when you have a lot of this energy, it's interesting because it's like just the way that this plane is, like everything down here is backwards, right? So if you come through and you have a lot of this energy, like you will see, okay, that like you tend to be like an energetic target. And I don't mean that in like a paranoid type of way. I just mean that in like a moth to a flame type of way. So like, let's say you come through and you have a lot of sexual energy, well, maybe your power gets taken away from you in that area at an early point in time, but like you're meant to use your sexual energy to bring through something like new, right? Or just like some form of new creative like venture or whatever it is, okay? So same thing for like the 12th house. The 12th house isn't necessarily so much sexual energy, but it's like, it's a lot of manifestors energy. So it's like you come through and healing energy too. Also the 8th house can be healing as well. So there's just like different types of healing, I guess you can say. So when you have a lot of this energy in your natal chart, right? You're coming through with like already a lot of energy. Do you know what I mean? And it's interesting because it's like when Scorpio's in the shadow, like especially if they're like wounded or unhealed, like they might sleep around, for example, but it's like they're actually wasting their sexual energy because it's like you have the access of sexual energy to create in this lifetime, right? whatever it is that you're trying to bring through. Now, if you have a lot of this energy and you don't have an outlet, maybe going to the gym is going to help you get it out of your system. Let's see. You said lifetime of shadow work, indeed, sacral chakra blocked, solar plexus underdeveloped. You said ancestral trauma is so clear. Yes, that's another thing. Yeah, the Scorpio, so the 8th house, people, 12th house, and sometimes 4th house too are clearing a lot of generational things as well. That's intense. You said, do you think there's an alignment affecting things in regards to puff and then the rest of the word? I'm not going to say it on here. And then you said the other person. And then you said, okay, all of those people. Okay, I'm not going to say it on the live. So people who are watching the replay, just like look at the chat to see who we're talking about. So the veil is lifting. This is what I mean. This is what I was saying earlier as well. It's like the veil is lifting. So it's like a lot of this information like has already been lingering around in like the ethers. Like some of these things have been talked about here and there from what I remember, like 2016, 2017. So it's like, it's been there. It's just like the collective, I don't know how to explain it. Okay, the only way I can explain it is like, especially for people who like, let's say have Mercury in the 12th house. Like sometimes when you have Mercury in the 12th house and you say something that is like a little bit more advanced, like on a conscious level, it just like goes over people's heads, okay? Because it's like, it's not even like they're rejecting the information. You just like see like this blank stare, right? And they just like move past it and they continue talking about whatever else they were talking about. And it's like sometimes you'll see maybe like down the road, they'll be like, oh, like I thought of this. And you're going to be like, well, I actually told you that like 5 months ago, but like I guess you didn't register it, right? So it's kind of what's happening with all of these events, okay? People like haven't registered it, but at least the seed in a way was planted. So it's like now the veil is lifting, like people are seeing things for what they are, which is good, okay? Because it's like, the collective needs to stop feeding into these people because the only reason these people are elevated is because the collective has fed into that. Do you know what I mean? So the power is being like shifted, like it's like a shift in power. It's going out of like the hierarchical structure into like a circle type structure to like the everyday person and like more like equality energetically. This is all happening energetically, right? So it's like those are the energies. But the thing is the energies can always be hijacked. So this is why you can't be in the lower chakras. Like you can't be in fear, you can't be and just like anything that like controls you, like any sort of wounding, right? This is why it's like important to like clear all that energy off of you and be in the heart space, because it's like when you have any form of wound, like it's easier for these types of people to control you, or anybody in your life really to control you. I hope that makes sense. Hey everyone, welcome. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. I'm going in order, so I will get to your questions at the bottom in just a second. Scorpio sun with your Taurus sun. Hold on. Scorpio sun with your Taurus sun is in the 7th house. What does that mean? How do you have Scorpio sun and Taurus sun? You said, thanks to your videos, you understand a better sun and Mercury in the 12th. And how about when Saturn is added to the mix? If you have Saturn in the 12th house, that's a sign of a writer, which is nice. Especially with all that 12th house energy, you could be interested in singing, songwriting as well. So I'm glad. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. I'm glad that the videos resonated. I'm glad that that resonated. I don't know what I was talking about when you wrote your comment, but I'm glad that that resonated. I use Tropical Placidus Astrology. Eva says, hey Barbara, is it true that the 12 house placements do better? Yes, away from their hometown. Absolutely. You've moved and then returned home and then you had an overwhelming feeling of depression. Yeah. So especially if you have a 12 house sun, more often than not, you're going to leave from wherever you were born. Okay. So it's so interesting when I don't know, I have a Scorpio stellium. So when I wrote this, like when I did this TikTok, so I did the TikTok, let me think. I'm just dying because I think it was like 2021. Anyways, so I think it was the way that I worded the TikTok. It like triggered people's like death phobia, but it's like, again, like Scorpio. So I said it so nonchalantly. That's why I'm like dying. But anyways, what I said was like, when you have a 12 house sun, like you might die away from the place where you were born. And then like everybody ended up like freaking out. But it's like, basically what I was trying to get at was what you're saying. Like you end up moving away, right? And living away, okay, from the place where you were born. And same thing for North Node in the 4th house as well. Like those people will also prosper if they like move away from the place where they're born. And another thing too, I just learned about this term. Someone was telling me about this term. I can't remember what it was called. It was a psychology term. It's so interesting because I pick up on these things energetically and then I don't have like the label for it. And then someone comes along or like I hear the term, but I can't remember what the term was. And I meant to ask that person today what that term was. But anyways, okay, I'll explain it to you from an energy perspective, okay? how things feel. So like sometimes when you, let's say, grow up somewhere, and this is for everybody regardless of like the placements, let's say you grow up somewhere, or like, I don't know, like let's say you work at a certain place. Okay, while you're in that place, right, like let's say something takes place, especially like let's say somewhere you've grown up, for example, let's say there is like a certain trauma that took place in that area, or something negative, or you just like have like a negative association to that place. Okay, whether or not you like move past it and you grow past it, I feel like energetically like the imprint is there in that place. I hope that makes sense. Okay, and there's a term for this in psychology, oh my gosh, I just can't remember what it was, but they were talking about that, like it's like an association, but the person that was telling me about it was like, it was like in a positive sense. I was thinking of it like before when I thought about it in like the negative sense, right? So it's like, let's say you've grown up in a certain place, or like for example, it could even be like your parents' house, right? If they still live in that place, it's like when you go back to that house, you revert back into like the version of yourself that you were when you were there. I hope that makes sense, because there's like a part of you that like remembers, okay? Like even if you've moved past it, grown past it, so on and so forth. So like with places and living in certain places, if you've had certain experiences in those places, like I feel like you create like an energetic imprint. So sometimes I feel like when you move away from that place, like you energetically are creating like a new path for yourself, like regardless of astrology, like regardless of everything, just like energetically, the way that I tap into it. So there's that part of it as well. I hope that makes sense. Sun in the 12th house, you always wanted to move away from home. You're 36 and it finally happened. Yeah, I'm so glad that it happened for you. Saturn in the 12th, yes, it is a sign of a writer. Okay, how to get out of fear energy, yes. So I have my chakra playlist. Definitely check out my chakra playlist, you guys. So in my chakra series, I go over all of the chakras basically like in separate videos. It's called Exploring the Chakras, and especially the lower three, because that's where most people are energetically like in. Okay, I don't want to use any of like trapped, blocked. Like I try to stay away from those words because it like kind of perpetuates like a victim, like this happened to you and you don't have like the power. I try to give the power back to you, right? So it's like you can get out of that basically, right? So I try to stay away from like that terminology, okay? So basically, if you have any sort of fear energy, depends what kind of fear we're talking about here, okay? Because it's like, let's say you have social anxiety and you're someone who's just like really nervous to go out and just like talk to new people, and like that really hinders, you know, certain parts of your life. Like let's say that hinders your ability to make friends or just like meet new people. For some people, it can hinder the ability to like form like romantic connections, right? So like let's say you have some form of social anxiety, like the way that I've broken through certain things, and this is just from my own experience, so you guys can take it with a grain of salt, but it's like the way that I've broken through certain things is by doing that exact thing. Like that's sometimes how you break out of the fear, right? So it's like, let's say you have social anxiety. Well, to break out of that, you have to put yourself in certain situations where you're being social and like by yourself, right? Because sometimes people who are socially anxious might like have a buddy with them, or like always go with someone somewhere. Like sometimes it doesn't always have to be this, okay? Like let's say you're socially anxious, maybe you don't have a friend or something like that to go with you, and like maybe you just like continue being socially anxious in your house, but it's like for you to break out of that, and this is what I mean by like giving the power back to you, or you know, you give your power back to yourself, like whatever terminology you guys want to use, is like it's in your hands, right? Like I think people can overcome anything. I genuinely believe that. I think it's a mindset. So it's like if you have this issue, for example, it's like putting yourself in certain situations to overcome that particular fear. And it's like the more you do it, it's like a practicing thing, just like anything, right? The more you do it, the more it becomes like second nature to you, and then eventually you don't think about it at all. So it could be this, okay? Or like let's say you have a fear of public speaking. Well, taking a class or being in a public speaking group, or so you have to put yourself in that exact place. Let's say you have a fear of going to a certain place, or like let's say it's like you have a fear of being on your own or in a relationship. Because the thing is, or like in terms of like always wanting to be in a relationship and like fearing being on your own. Because the thing is, if you have that fear, right? Especially fear of abandonment, like that's a big one. That's what I talked about in terms of like the solar plexus chakra. That's a collective wound. That's everybody. Like everyone has that fear. It's like innately within humans, because it's like we're very like community based if you think about it. And especially back in the day in terms of like the abandonment wound, like the biggest like punishment, I guess you can say, for people was to be ostracized from the community. So people already have that wound kind of happening, whether it's conscious or unconscious, like within them. So it's like, if you have that fear and you're unaware that you have it, like it'll be driving a lot of factors within your life. Like let's say, for example, you have the fear of being alone and you always want to be in a relationship. Well, that could lead you to settle or toxic relationships, or like even if a relationship doesn't start out toxic and like maybe you have a fear of like losing that person and you want to hold on to them for dear life, then it can maybe turn toxic or like not balanced, or like sometimes like it could attract like people who are opportunists and they can sense the wound within you, especially unhealed people a lot of the time, especially narcissists. Okay, so you know what's interesting? Okay, this is interesting that we're getting into this because I've been needing to tell you guys this as well. What I've been thinking about, like people who have narcissistic traits or qualities. Not everyone is a narcissist, but there's a lot of people who have a lot of narcissistic tendencies, okay? So here's what I've been thinking about with them. First of all, a lot of the time they'll be able to hook into one of your wounds, okay? So let's say the wound is abandonment. So they'll hook into this. Or like, let's say the wound is like, it's like, you know what's really interesting? Because it's like you have an empath and a narcissist who like attract each other, right? And what I've noticed, and what I used to say this back in the day, because I used to teach a class on empaths way back. I've been trying to stay away from the term because again, social media, like it gets butchered, right? But back in the day, so when was this? 2019, I used to teach a class in person. This was in person, and it was about empaths. And I would talk about in that class, and I'm just like, I'm thinking, and I'm like, wow, that was like 2018, 2019, and only these days everyone's talking about these terms. I'm like thinking, I'm like, that probably triggers so many people. But anyways, so what I would talk about was like how an empath and a narcissist like are actually like very similar. Like sometimes like I look at a narcissist as like an unhealed empath because they have a lot of things in common. Like the narcissist is going to be like psychically in tune and like a shadow sense. Do you know what I mean? So they'll pick up on your wound and they'll hook into that wound. So like, let's say you have like a validation wound, for example, where it's like you need like constant like reassurance, let's say, okay? Maybe they pick up on that and like they purposefully don't give it to you, you know, or like because of their own power and control issues. So it's really, really interesting. So that's one thing that I was thinking about with narcissists. And another thing, what I was thinking about with narcissism is a high level narcissistic person. And this is my own terminology. I'm not a psychologist. This is just the way that I would compartmentalize the energy. That's my disclaimer, okay? That's my disclaimer. But like a higher level narcissistic person, what I've noticed is these people become very good at mirroring people, okay? Especially like if they're a higher level narcissistic person, they tend to hook into people who are, again, higher level, maybe like empath or people who have a lot of empathy, like whatever term you guys want to use. And they're so good at mirroring, like, yeah, that's what I've been thinking about lately. So that's another thing that I wanted to tell you guys as well, is like how like, I don't know, I don't want to put it on like a hierarchical thing, because when I say high level, it kind of sounds like they got like a prize or something. I don't mean this. Maybe a more advanced or like a skilled narcissist, whatever term you guys want to use, okay? But like someone who has like a high degree of like narcissism becomes very good at mirroring energy back to you. And that's why sometimes it's really, really hard to pick up on it, because really what they're doing is like they're feeding off of your energy and then they're mirroring your energy back to you, okay? So that's my dissertation on all of that. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. I love you guys too. You said, in other words, hold on, I think you said something before that. You said, in other words, our natal energies affect our experiential trauma. You have less anxiety because your natal chart gives you societal energies. Okay, you said, yes, the abandonment wound starts when you're babies and the mother leaves us. Yes, I've heard about that too. And then Anna says, people usually run from situations that trigger fear, but those exact healing methods, also listening to thoughts and realizing that you have to see the thought, not through the thought. I like that. Let's see. You said, haha, perfect example of some complexity of our discussions. You had some social anxiety from childhood trauma. Sorry to hear that. And then you said, but because you're a Gemini Mars and in the third house, you're a flibberty jibbed. I've never heard that term before. But yeah, that's another thing, okay? That's another thing that I noticed too. A lot of the time, like whatever thing you guys are meant to be doing in this lifetime, you tend to struggle in exactly that area. Because again, it's like just like the dark energy down here, like it always triggers. And this is what I mean also. Like it could come through a person, the dark energy, or it can just come through like the overall structure. Like you can just have these experiences that just like knock you down in the area that you're like meant to be doing. Like I've heard that a lot. I've heard that like with a lot of the signs, like Gemini, sometimes I've heard like they tend to struggle to speak. Or like maybe they're more shy, or like third house people sometimes with Leo energies, like I've heard that they tend to be shy, but it's like you really want to be seen, right? So you have to explore and be like, what is it like that took place that's like basically taking your light away from you? And it's just like this energetic structure. It literally F's with people. Like, I can't explain it any other way. Like, it literally F's with people, and it just like constantly wants to knock them down. And it's like, you literally have to be in like a constant energetic battle. Like, that's why it's a spiritual WAR. Like, up until this point, until people come into their full power, which is awesome. Like, we're going into that direction, right? But a lot more people just like have to work on themselves is really what that is. So same thing, like back to that fear question. It's like, anytime you fear something, you have to see how can you break through that particular fear is really what that is. So if it's like you fear being alone and you're always looking for a relationship, then be alone for some time. And honestly, doing that like is gonna wield so much personal power to you, because you're also gonna learn so much about yourself as well during that time. Okay, another one of you guys wanted to know about the get out of fear energy. Yay, I'm glad that I picked up on that. And then you said you're a Gemini with Aries rising and a Taurus moon. Taurus moon can be stubborn. I've noticed with them. They can also be really possessive. Okay, so Taurus energy, I feel like they kind of go under the radar, but it's like everyone talks about Scorpios and then they're like, they bounce off of each other. But I've seen some Taurus people who can be super possessive, like super possessive of like anything in their life, like whether that's their loved ones, whether that is like their job, whether that's their actual items. So yes, Taurus moon can become very possessive, but they can also be good hustlers, and they can get the gains and they can get the wealth and they get the material things, and like that's what's on your mind. So it's all about mastering money in this lifetime. You said Neptune and Uranus in Aquarius in the second house, part of fortune in Capricorn. Okay, so Neptune and Uranus, that's a subset of your generation. So here's the thing with the external planets. So the external planets, the sign is going to be the subset of your generation that you share that with. Okay, so generationally, you guys come through and it's like you all share this together. So you're collectively clearing something with each other, for yourselves, for the family line, and then for the collective as a whole, okay? So Neptune and Uranus. So here's another thing too with the generational planets, like the house affects you more, okay? Because that's where the energy is being expressed in your lifetime, okay? So Neptune and Uranus in Aquarius, like this subset of your generation probably is very futuristic in terms of their ideas, but it's literally what I've been saying like during this whole live. I guess that's the theme of this live. It's like the collective is catching up with you guys is really what that is. Like you guys are going to be anchoring like the new ideas, the new way of thinking, the futuristic way of thinking, like new inventions, innovations, all these types of things. Because a lot of you guys grew up with like internet already is really what that is. So a lot of you guys are already like knowledgeable and like self-taught with a lot of things. But it's like Uranus are the ideas, right? But the Neptune blurs it for you guys. So the blurring part of Neptune is like basically you guys quote unquote waiting for the collective to catch up with you. That's how I see the energy. And then you said part of fortune in Capricorn, those are ways you can make money. So hustling, your connections, building, trying to elevate yourself financially. When you have Capricorn in the part of fortune, what else? Anytime you're getting the gains, the money, like hustling towards something, the goals, like that all is going to basically activate abundance for you. Love it. Let's see. Chiron, North Node, and Eclipse are where conjuncting your natal sun. You also are having a Venus return right now, 12th house, Aries, Sun, and Venus. So you probably have, I'm curious to know if you have Aries in your 12th house. Thoughts on Lilith and Aries, 10th house, and then it's at the 1st degree. Okay, so Lilith are our dark sides or our shadow traits. So you guys can look at Lilith as like Pluto's little cousin. That's how I see the Lilith energy. And it can sometimes be how you express yourself sexually as well. I do have some videos on Lilith. I think it's in its own playlist, but it's like sometimes these can be shadow traits. So when you have it in Aries and the 10th house, like that's kind of like a ruthless type of energy if it's in the shadow. Like it'll do anything to get to the top. Like it might throw people under the bus. It'll just like it really wants to win is really what that is. But the question is like at what cost? So you just kind of have to integrate the energy within yourself. Pluto in Scorpio 12th house, you've met so many people with it and you can't understand how the energy works. So Pluto in Scorpio is the generation as a whole. So that's going to be the millennials. They come through together. They have something that they have to clear collectively, okay, as a group. They have something to clear. They basically have to clear it then. This is for all Plutos, like for all the generations. They come through generationally, right? All the different generations to clear something amongst each other, then for the collective as a whole, for their family, and then for yourself on that soul level. So Pluto and Scorpio, I have a whole video on that because there's just so much to say. The millennials are clearing a lot. And you see that with the types of like content that's like popular, especially in these last like 2 to 3 years. If you have all of like the gender war types of content, like one side is saying this, the other side is saying that. But if you really listen to what each side is saying, it's all manipulation. It's all like abandonment wound. A lot of it is rooted even sometimes in hypocrisy. I find a lot of like issues within this generation, like millennial / Pluto and Scorpio. It's going to be like the mother wound is a big one that they have to clear. Attachment styles, attachment issues, fear of intimacy, trust issues when it comes to intimacy, power and control is a big one in this generation. Like, yeah, it's a lot. They have to clear a lot. Like, it's honestly a lot. So after they transmute a lot of this energy, right, like then you go into the divine version, which is like the healers, which is the creative aspects, the intuition, the psychic gifts and ability. So that's kind of like generally what's happening with the generation. Also, money is another one within this generation. Like a lot of millennials, at least in the West, I can't speak on the other countries. I don't know. I didn't live there. But within the West, like a lot of millennials always had like side hustles. You know what I mean? Like they always had their job and then a side hustle this and a side hustle that and all these types of hustles, right? So that's also Pluto and Scorpio, especially if you have Uranus and Neptune conjunct in Capricorn, like you're part of that subset of the millennials that is very much like hustle, like side hustle this, side hustle that, because like they're figuring out new ways to make money. This is what I mean by like the collective shift, right? Even like the way that we make money and how we get money and what is money, like that's all shifting. So that fell onto Pluto and Scorpio and then also Pluto and Sag as well to basically clear that energetically. The lunar eclipse and then Pluto and Scorpio, or sorry, Pluto in the 12th house. I have a video on that on my YouTube channel if you want to learn more. It's under my Pluto playlist. I just posted it last week. Basically, these are like all the unconscious things. Like there's a lot to clear, okay, when you have Pluto in the 12th house, because like a lot of your unconscious is coming through from a past life. And it's a lot of dark things, maybe a lot of fears, maybe a lot of just like things to do with spirituality, like not being able to express it. Maybe you grew up in a religious home. Like there's so many different ways that the energy could be expressed. So if you want to learn more, there's a video on that just recently that I posted. Lunar eclipse was conjunct your lunar moon, solar eclipse in opposition. What does that mean? Libra sun, Mercury, Venus, 9th house, Libra moon, 8th house. Mercury and North Node are both in Leo in the 10th house. Any thoughts? Okay, so you'll see a lot of reality people, like reality TV people, or just like people who are in the public eye, have their Mercury in the 10th house. I've noticed that for them. Sometimes Sun in the 10th house as well. And then you also have your North Node in the 10th house. So 10th house energy in a natal chart, like it's a public life, right? But it depends like what type of public sector you go into. It could be reality TV, like it depends on the combinations on your chart, yes. But it could also be like people who work in the government, for example, like that's a public sector type of job as well, okay? It could be sometimes people who are very well known in their niche. So like let's say you work in corporate and you work in like the engineering field, it depends on the rest of your natal chart. But if you work in this field, you could become very well known when you have 10th house energy going on in your natal chart, okay? Leo though, like because you have Leo in there, it's gonna have to be something showy, right? Like you being on a stage and presenting, like it could be like online, like wherever, right? Depends on the rest of the natal chart, but you have to be seen basically. Let's see, what else are you guys saying in here? You said, makes sense for Pluto and Scorpio. Okay, so for you guys to understand basically like the generational like clearances a little bit better. So this is the theme of today's live as well, because we're shifting into the new time, right? We're shifting into the new era. It's more like, it's like Aquarius, right? So it's more individualistic in the sense where it's like everyone's their own person. People aren't as enmeshed energetically as they used to be. Like it's all gonna be different. You guys will see. I actually did a video on this. I took it down. I didn't take it down. Like I usually archive it. Like my videos, I never actually take them down. So they're in my archives, but like I took it like down, or like I archived it because like there were some new age terms in there that like I didn't like that I was using, but maybe I'll like re-up or like re-show it to you guys so you guys can see what I was talking about. I was talking about like where I see humanity heading. And like we went super into the crown in that video basically. So what I was saying was like, as we move through this time, right? And I was basing it based off of like the Pluto energies. And I did this, I think it was 2021 or 2022, 2021 maybe. Anyways, the video was called like Where I See Humanity Heading. And it's like, we're moving into a completely different time, right? Like energetically, like we're coming out of this intense energetic enmeshment, right? Where everyone's like energetically involved. It's been very trauma-based, this whole plane, right? A lot of suffering for people, just like intense energetically, right? So we're moving out of that because people are coming into the awareness, right? They're coming into the awareness. So you'll see this within the generations, how it's shifting, because it's like Pluto and Scorpio. I mean, other generations, I'm not saying that other generations didn't go to therapy, but Pluto and Scorpio is the one that like normalized it in a way to like talk about it, make it more open and so on and so forth. So the way that I see the generations is like, you can look at it as the alphabet, okay? So we have Gen Y, which is millennials, then Z, and that's the end. This is just how I psychically see it. I can't confirm or deny. This is just my own opinion, okay? So then you have the end with Gen Z, and you have Gen Alpha. When I tap into Gen Alpha, like by the time they grow up, it's like a completely different world. Like they're already coming out of the womb like tech, like little tech children, right? Like little tech babies. Like, you know, they're very advanced energetically. So a lot of structures and systems are already outdated. The education system's outdated. Everything that we do is like ancient, right? And it's been like that by design to like suppress people, right? So we're moving into like a more advanced time is really, really what that is. So a lot of like the clearance, energetic clearance has fallen onto Pluto and Scorpio and Pluto and Sag as well, because they're Gen Z, they're at the end. But mainly Pluto and Scorpio, because it's like Pluto's ruled by Scorpio. And it's just like all the shadows, all the dark things. And I find it interesting because it's like a lot of the millennials or like the Pluto and Scorpio people are either choosing not to have children, or some of them just can't for financial reasons or whatever it is. But you'll see that within that generation, they're not like, you know, so interested maybe in having children. Like there's just like a decline, I guess you can say. And we can talk about for days why that is and whatever, right? But if you look at it generally, like at like the broader picture of things, it's like there's just so much that they're clearing energetically, because a lot of them are old souls is really what that is. And then the newer generations, like that's just gonna be a completely different time. Like literally a completely different time. Thank you, Ashley. Dawning of the age of Aquarius, absolutely. Yes, it is, it is, it is. So interesting. Psychically, I picked up on that. I'm trying to think, because I know that song. It's also, the group was called The Fifth Dimension, which is really, really interesting. So I think it was before CV, so it was before 2020. So I think it was 2019, the fall, or no, it was like the winter, it was the winter solstice when I psychically saw, this was psychically, I was picking up on this, like us moving into the age of Aquarius. Now you have different people saying different things. Some people say that we already entered it. Some people are saying that we haven't entered it yet. I don't know, but energetically, like we're shifting overall, regardless of the label. You said you can't wait for Pluto to enter in Pisces. Aries said that will be amazing. After Aquarius, Pluto, exactly, we're gonna have a spiritual redefining. Exactly. So when I recorded that, like where I see humanity heading video, like it's really, really interesting, because even in terms of the financial system, like everything I was seeing psychically like shifting and changing. But another thing too, I think it depends to see what happens, because eventually like we're not going to be using astrology, but that could be further into the timeline, because I do see us eventually learning astrology in schools. It just depends, like it depends which way the frequency goes. That's another reason why I stopped doing predictive readings, because it's like the frequency is changing so fast. Like not the frequency, yeah, like the timelines and the frequencies are changing so fast, so it's like it's hard to like hook into it how it was back in the day when it was like more linear. I hope that makes sense. You said it's like we're collectively reflecting on the past, exactly, before moving into this new era. Yeah. You said you heard that Pluto and Aquarius would be more community based, but why would you say it? When I said individualistic, I don't mean it, yeah, maybe that's not the best term to use. What I meant by individualistic was like every person is their own person, okay? So like right now, it's very like enmeshed, okay? It's like relationships are enmeshed, and it's like, okay, the only way I can explain it, and I think I talked about this in that video as well, so it's kind of good because like now I'm going over it here with you guys as well. The only way that I can explain it is like the only reason we have masculine and feminine polarities is because we fell, okay? Energetically we fell. So it's like that's kind of how we like separated into the two. Now you can even see, right, we're merging closer and closer together, looking more and more like each other, because it's an energy thing. Like people are balancing the energies within is really what that is. So it's like back in the day, like both energies needed each other, because it's like one energy was doing one thing and the other energy was doing the other thing, right? But now like we're coming out of that. So what I mean by individualistic is like everyone's going to be their own person. Like I don't see it being so energetically enmeshed. I don't know, I can't explain it any other way. Like I feel like it's energetically enmeshed. It could be community based, like it could be like everyone is within a community, but like I don't see it being like, I don't mean individualistic in the sense where it's like isolated. I don't mean that. I just mean like everyone is their own person is really what I mean. Like there's a lot of codependency that the collective is healing and breaking through. That's what I mean by like the energetic enmeshment of like the two people always dating, you know what I mean? Like the relationships being together forever kind of thing. Like I see us moving out of that paradigm altogether. That's just my own opinion. We'll see what happens. You said people are awakening to the fact that we are not the body and the mind. Finally, they are not identified with their stories, except it can be tricky with the ego. Absolutely, it can be tricky with the ego. I'm just gonna go back up and see if I miss anybody up here. You said, do I have aspects transits that I notice could influence narcissistic and or dangerous traits than others? I mean, all of the signs and the shadow could be dangerous or narcissistic. I've noticed like if you have Sag and Scorpio in the shadow, that energy can really go into like extreme like power and control, hedonistic types of behavior. Like if it's combined, the two energies together. But all of the signs can be narcissistic in their own way. But like the whole reason I say Scorpio, and like again, like Scorpio is on that range, right? But if it's really unhealed, if it's really wounded, like it can take these like gifts, right, of like psychic gifts and abilities and use it in the shadow sense, or like put salt in the wound, or just like say certain things to trigger people on purpose, like when it's in the shadow. So I guess it's hard to say. It kind of depends like what we identify as like narcissistic traits. Like sometimes narcissism, you can look at it as like a person who just thinks of themselves, but it's like, yeah, that's kind of how I see it. Like someone who can like get under your skin or just like try to like manipulate you, and that could really be those energies. No hate to any of those signs. Any of the signs can go into the shadow, but it's just like, this is just what I've noticed. I've seen like posts where people talk about like the mutable energies also, but I can't confirm that. I haven't seen enough. You said Gemini, Sun, Moon in Taurus, Scorpio rising with the A house stellium. Possessiveness is one of your biggest shadows. Yeah. Yeah, possessiveness is, and this is interesting because this is another thing that we're healing through. So when I was talking about like us moving into the new age, like people are going to be clearing through the possessiveness, right? Like they're clearing through that whole need, right? Because the thing is like, and it's so interesting. I just went to a talk the other day. Like everyone was like speaking, so it's I guess a conversation more so, like a group conversation, and it's like the topic was, does true love exist? And it was really interesting to hear everyone's different perspectives and like what people think true love is and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to go into too many of the details, but something that I think everyone was able to come to a consensus on in terms of relationships was the fact that, you know, when you're in a relationship, it's usually because a person is fulfilling a need for you, you know, and it's like, if you're underdeveloped, like basically like the whole conversation ended up being like, is it love if it's rooted in ego? Is really the whole thing here. And it's like, if you need a validation from that specific person, right? Like what's happening here, you know? So when we move into more of the Aquarian energies, like you're not going to need it from that specific person. Maybe there's going to be more other, you know, people around that will be able to fulfill that need for you. Or maybe you would have fulfilled that need within yourself already, that you don't need it out of another person. I hope that makes sense. You said you were raised in fear. When I understand, or you said when you understand that fear bases through, hold on. Fear bases, maybe you wanted to say thoughts, are the mother of anxiety. You will start working with your beliefs ASAP. Exactly. Gemini rising with Moon in Cancer, Sun and Venus. Venus retrograde. So those are like love affairs that you're relearning in this lifetime. Saturn and Mercury in Aquarius. Jupiter retrograde in Virgo. What would you like to know about all of that? You said inner child work literally means releasing the energy of the past, which is stuck in survival, root chakra. Exactly, Anna, you're literally onto it. You said you have Scorpio, Mars, Chiron, and part of fortune in the second house. Any advice? I'm curious to know, are you a Libra rising? Okay, Scorpio, Mars, and this is going to go for the other individuals who are talking about like the A house energy as well. So when you have Scorpio, Mars, basically like your motivations are hidden is really what that is. Now I've seen this energy play out in different ways. It depends on the person and how evolved they are, because if they're unevolved, they can be very secretive, they can be very shadowy, they can have addictions. I've seen it play out in that way as well for Scorpio, Mars. In the divine version, super spiritual, healing energy. Like again, you know, that's that Scorpionic energy. Depends which direction you take it in. Now, in terms of your goals, you might not necessarily say what you're doing because you know people can energetically interfere. Scorpio Mars can literally bring anything through, and it's such a strong energy because it's like you're focusing on that thing. But in the shadow, it would focus on a person and become obsessive over that person is really, really what that is. And then sometimes when you're obsessive over a person, you're interfering with that person's free will. So those are all the shadowy traits collectively that we're clearing, okay? This is a collective thing that's being cleared. So once again, going back to or tying into what I was saying about like the individualism, right? In terms of like you just being your own person, you know, you're just like doing your own thing and like not being necessarily like too attached to everything, because it's Aquarius, right? Like we're moving into detachment. People think of detachment as like a shadow thing. I don't see it this way. I just see it futuristic. The only way I can explain it is watch my Venus and Aquarius video, you guys, if you want to understand more of what I'm saying, because when I did that video, I literally tapped into like the future of relationships. Like, yeah, it's more so like a vibe, I guess I can say. You said, oh my God, you were talking today about learning new ways to meet your needs, like asking directly. Exactly, because we are used to manipulate. Exactly, there is shame and asking, stigma around needing. Exactly. So that's another thing. So in that whole like discussion that we all had in terms of like relationships, basically like another thing that was like a common thread, what a lot of people were saying was like, you know, relationships basically like tend to, let's say, be disappointment sometimes because like there is expectations, right? In terms of like this person does this or whatever, right, of like the relationship. But it's like also another thing that we came to conclude, like again as a group, like when we were all discussing this, was like, you know, you need to have boundaries, but you also need to have the awareness and you need to be able to verbalize, because sometimes people expect the other person to know, and how can you know if the other person doesn't verbalize? But the only way you can verbalize and communicate what you need or what you're looking for is if you know yourself. And the only way you can actually truly know yourself is if you at least spend a little bit of time on your own and in your own energy. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's interesting to see, like, it's interesting to see how like these are even conversation topics, because we are moving away from just like the unhealed, like shadowy version of all of this is really, really what that is. Oh, yay, I'm so glad that you love my lives. Thank you all for being here as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, Alex says, you have Scorpio Mars when the shadow comes out. Yeah, Scorpio Mars can be intense because they can be very vengeful. They can be very vindictive. They can go into stalkery types of energy. They can go into obsessive, possessive, like, yeah, it's definitely intense because it's like Scorpio used to be ruled by Mars. So it's like, it's a beautiful energy when it has a goal and it has something that it's like working toward. But if it has no purpose, it's going to go into like, I don't want to say, it's not hedonism like Sag, but it could go into this energy as well, where it's like, just like the lower chakras, like the lower pleasures in life, like kind of getting the short-term gratification, I guess is the term, or just like, yeah, just being intense. Like Scorpio Mars is a very interesting energy because it can really be divine when it's divine, but when it's in the shadow, it can really, really be in the shadow. Like it can also be like very cutthroat with its words, like sometimes very mean. It can like take your shadows and like throw it in your face. Like this is what I mean by like Scorpio in the shadow. Like Scorpio in the shadow is like not for the faint of heart, especially if like the person has a lot of trauma or like unhealed things and they're not even working on it and they're not even aware. Like it's really dark, the energy. It just is what it is. Let's see. You said, yeah, Mercury retrograde. You said, if the way you express yourself is messy, just know when it is Mercury retrograde, just know, so you know it's Mercury retrograde kicking your butt. Well, when you have Mercury retrograde and the world is going through Mercury retrograde, it's your energy, you know what I mean? So it should be a little bit easier for you during that time. You said like a warrior with a stinger, honestly. And also with Scorpio energy, like when they're on like the path of vindictiveness or like revenge, like good luck to literally anyone around them, because the energy, it depends, because it's like if the energy, okay, so when it's underdeveloped, it can be sometimes impulsive or just like explosive, like if it's underdeveloped. But if it's a little bit more developed but it's still in the vengeful state, it can literally plan things out to get revenge on another person, and like the other person wouldn't even be able to say anything. Like that's how intense the energy can be, because it's like psychological, it's energetic, it's all happening energetically. The only way that I can explain it is like, okay, I don't know what the term is for this. Also, my friend also told me about this, but basically like I had like my faucet until I fixed it, like was dripping, okay? And in the beginning, I didn't notice it because you like tune it out, but like toward the end, like right before I was like, okay, finally it's time to fix this, because it's like, you know, it's getting annoying. Like it's like getting to the point of annoying. And like, basically my friend was telling me that like there used to be some form of like prison, like torture type of thing where they do something like that, like something that's like not as annoying, the more like it's like dripping just like quietly, like it's like a silent quiet killer energetically is really what that is. And that can be Scorpio in the shadow. Like they can slowly break a person down when they're in their vindictive state, and it's just like, it's intense, like it's an intense energy, because they can make it their whole mission to do this, and then the other person wouldn't be able to pick up on it, and it's going to be quiet and it's going to be slow, and you can't even, like, it's an energetic thing when they're in the shadow, you know. So it depends what like version of the energy you go into. That's the one, death by 1,000 paper cuts. Yes. Let's see, you said, do I do celebrity chart readings? If so, yes. I actually have a second YouTube channel. Oh my gosh, I haven't posted on there in so long. I have a second YouTube channel called Barbara Talks Some More. I had started it last year. I did 2 readings for celebrities. I used to do, okay, so when I first started my YouTube channel, I did celebrity readings, and I did it with tarot cards, but people were getting so triggered, and it's just so interesting to me, because it's like everything that I said in those videos, people are coming to like the awareness of it now, and it's just like, anyways, whatever, it just is what it is, okay, when you got that Uranus Aquarian influence, okay, but now last year when I started that second YouTube channel, it was like readings, like the natal chart readings, but I haven't done any in a while because I have to psychically hook into the person's energy, and I just like have been busy doing other things. I have one person that I've been wanting to do the reading on them, so maybe I'll get around to that eventually. But yes, the channel is called Barbara Talks Some More. Okay, so this is Barbara Talks, and that one's called Barbara Talks Some More. So that's where you'll find my celebrity readings. And it's interesting because even back in the day, a lot of the predictions that I made ended up coming true. Like, it's just like so interesting. Like, this life is just like, it's literally a timing thing sometimes. Okay, and even in the reading that I did on Selena Quintanilla, I picked up on them pulling her energy into this earth plane. That's how I hooked into her energy. Okay, that's sometimes how mediumship works. Now, I don't do labels, but I just like hook into the energy. Okay, so it's like I hooked into her energy, and I was like, they're definitely pulling her energy in for something. And I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if something comes out about like her or like a new song or whatever. And what else did I say? I'm paraphrasing now. And then I even talked about like her on a live person. I have to use the language, unfortunately, on here. But yeah, so I mentioned her too. And yeah, something came out about her because she's getting her own docuseries. And I was like, I literally picked up on that. So yes, that's where I do the celeb readings. You guys can subscribe if you're interested. I can't promise when I'm going to be doing anything on there, but it's there. Okay, so when I post something, I'll post it on this channel too, so you guys can see. Let's see what else you guys saying on here. Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm so glad that resonated. No, it's not a word, like it's an actual like term. Okay, so after I'm done this live, I'm gonna ask my friend for those two terms because it's my same friend. One of the terms is for this particular prison torture method, and the other term is for when you have the energetic resonance with like a certain place or a person or whatever, and it's like you constantly have the association when you're there. So that's a psychology term, the second one. You said it's that psychological angle. You use your words and cut when you need to. Yeah, it can be definitely intense. Okay, hold on one second. I'm just gonna go back up because I remember seeing something up here that I wanted to answer. I hope that it's still there. So sorry to hear that, soul form. Okay, this is what it was. Concern, you said, Barbara, could you clarify once again when I said super intellectual? Yes, okay. I find, this is my opinion, again, okay? So this is my opinion. I find Mercury and Scorpio to be so smart. Like, I find them to be so intellectual. Now, the thing is, it's interesting because sometimes when you have Mercury and Scorpio, you could struggle in school. You can struggle with communication when you have this placement. But I find them to be super intellectual because they're emotionally intelligent and they're always 10 steps ahead. But if you're in the, again, the shadow version of Scorpio, the traumatized version, the unhealed, unaware, like whichever term you guys want to use, when you're in those versions, right, you're using your mental energy to mentally prepare yourself for whatever the trauma point was not to happen again, okay? So what do I mean by this? Let's say, I can't think of an example. Like, let's say the traumatic event was you being left out from something with your friends, for example. Okay, let's say that's a traumatic event. Okay, so like now when you're older, maybe you don't realize that you have this like trauma within you, and you're constantly like, you have this unconscious fear that you don't want to be left out. So you're like constantly like messaging your friends, like making sure that you're always invited to things because you don't want to be left out because it happened that one time. So it's like you're using a lot of this like mental energy to make sure that that outcome doesn't happen again. Okay, that's Scorpio in general in the shadow. Okay, but when you have it in your Mercury, it's the mental energy. You're spending a lot of your mental energy trying to mentally prepare yourself for certain things, for anything. Mercury and Scorpio can spend a lot of time like just like thinking about all the outcomes. If I do it this way, all this can happen. If I do it that way, all that can happen. So it's like it can be a lot of mental energy, but it's like when you clear that and when you energetically like purge it and get it out of your system, you go into the divine version of Scorpio where you're 10 steps ahead and your intuition is guiding you and you're emotionally intelligent, and it's like you're able to pick up on people's energies and these types of things. So that's what I mean. Like I see them like they're definitely like more like of an emotionally intelligent type of energy, but they're always 10 steps ahead. They're just like playing chess, not checkers, like at all times. Yeah, I'm going in order. J. Cole natal chart reading would be amazing. Ooh, what's going on with him? You said Diddy's a Scorpio. Yeah, you'll see in the industry, a lot of people have Scorpio energy. A lot of people in politics have Scorpio energy. All of them, you'll see there's something going on with Scorpio with a lot of these people's natal charts, because Scorpio seeks power and control, and they're into the occult, which is a combination of what all of these people are into. Let's see. What else are you guys saying in here? You said, can I tell you a little bit more about myself? Your career is how I became an astrologer and whether I was ever a teacher before. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, yes. So I have a video. Actually, I don't know what playlist, maybe it's in my entrepreneurship playlist. I have a video where I talk about how I got into astrology. And then I have another video where I talked about the entrepreneurial journey and like my 13 jobs that I had before I became a full-time entrepreneur. So if you guys want to learn all of that, it's going to be in those videos. But yes, so to answer your question in terms of teaching, so that's a very interesting question. Okay, here's all the things that I've done in a nutshell and how I got to astrology. This is just going to be very like bulletproof, like not bulletproof, like bullet points, okay? If you want to learn more, like you can check those videos out. So, okay, I did my school in math. That was my undergraduate degree. And then when it came to graduate, I didn't have enough math credits because I was like debating should I do math or economics. So then I had enough economics credits, so I switched to economics. I finished economics, and then I was like, I didn't suffer for nothing. So then I went back to finish my math degree. Okay, so I have a Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Arts. So I did those 2 degrees, and then I just like did whatever I could in my undergrad to just finish, to just get any job because I wanted to work for myself. So that's that story. Okay. So I finished that, I finished all of that, and I was like, okay, that was fun. Like I loved the whole experience in terms of like school and like the socializing aspect of it. I'm a Libra at the end of the day, okay? Like I love socializing. So that was that. And then from there, like in my last like year when I was finishing my math degree, I started my business, which was actually a fashion blog originally, because I knew I wanted to start something, but I didn't know what I wanted to start. I used to work in retail. People were like, and that was while I was still in school. I used to work in retail. People were like, oh my gosh, like you dress so cute. And I'm like, okay, so let me just do that. So I started my fashion blog, which was on Instagram. Okay, so that's when Instagram was just popping off. So I guess like the whole social media thing started there, because through that I got different like opportunities, because then through that I became a stylist, and that was my business. So then I was styling like fashion shows, music videos, like all these types of things, clients. Like it was fun. It was really, really fun. Except when I was in the fashion world, I was kind of like, well, you know what, like I want to like mix in spirituality with this, and like I kind of try, but like I don't know, that part of me like still wasn't fulfilled, I guess you can say. So from there, I actually met somebody else, and then I purchased a franchise, which was like creating networking events around the city for female entrepreneurs. So I did that, and that was very short-lived, but it was really fun because I developed like social like planning, like event planning skills through that. So that was a lot of fun. And it was like panels and talking and speaking. Like I always love to talk, okay, and speak. So I did that with those events, and then from there I went into like completely different, actually in between I did like dancing also, like I did like bachata performance and these types of things. So that was a lot of fun, but that was more so for fun, okay? And then from there I did my yoga teacher training. So then I started my mobile yoga business, okay? And through my mobile yoga business, like I was like, oh my gosh, like this is perfect because I love, you know, teaching and I love philosophy, but it's like in the Western countries, people don't really understand yoga, and like it's very fitness based, and that was just like bothering me so much. So anyways, through that journey, I actually had, before that I did my Reiki certification. So I just ended up like falling into, although everything just like aligns in its own way, right? Because I knew one of like the lady who started like the wellness center, I knew her from like the entrepreneurial days. This is how everything's connected. So anyway, so she started a wellness space, and then she was looking for like different types of people for her space. So whatever, I ended up getting a spot at her wellness space. So like you could basically have your business out of the wellness space. So I had my mobile yoga business that was like my own thing on the side, and then I had the Reiki thing going on, and that's where I started to strengthen even more my intuition. And that's where I fell in love with the teaching aspect of things, because to get more clients to come into the wellness space and to just like get more Reiki clients, like we had to think of ways to bring people in, and I started doing free classes where I was like teaching people about the chakras basically, okay? So teaching people about the chakras, and then people loved it. I also had that empath class I was telling you guys about, and I had like some other ones, but those were the most popular ones. So I did those like once a month, and it was a lot of fun. And then after that, I basically was like, well, I keep teaching the same thing all the time. I'm like, why don't I just put it online? And then I can just be like, oh, like refer to my like page online and like watch like the class, because I keep teaching it all the time, you know what I mean? Like just to save my own energy. So that's how my YouTube channel started. And through all that, I got into tarot, and then I got into astrology. So I did tarot for a while on here. I did oracle card readings on here. I did all kinds of readings, like literally, like I did the celebrity readings, I did energy readings, I did crypto readings for a period of time. And then I found astrology. And then, I mean, I was already into it, but then I got even more into it. So that was basically the journey thus far. I love learning things. So we'll see what's next. Okay. So that's my life story in a nutshell. You said 100% you can see me creating events. You had no idea I went to school for math, diversely talented. Thank you. You said you love the astrology YouTube world wound up. Yeah, exactly. Okay. You say personally you feel like Scorpio gets pushed into the dark areas of life, occultism, pseudosciences, because they tend to not fit in, yeah, compared to the other signs. Absolutely makes sense. So the yoga that I taught was Hatha yoga and vinyasa. I also did kids yoga. I did kids yoga, but then that was when I discovered that I don't like doing kids yoga because yeah, that was intense. That was really, they were like hardcore. You said you feel like my YouTube channel. Thank you. It's just being consistent and just being obsessed is really what that is. That's all I can say. So in terms of content creation, you have to be consistent and you have to become like obsessed with what you do is really what that is. And you'll get to your end goal is really what that is. Like, that's all that I can say. Like, that's what everything comes down to. It depends. Like, you know, again, I've worked in a lot of different realms, right? Because it's like sometimes in life connections, it's about connections and meeting people, but sometimes it comes back down to your energy and what you love to do and the frequency that you're at. And if you're passionate about it and it's like the way that you speak, you know, engages people. So it's this. Thank you. You guys are so funny in the comments below. Okay. I'm going back up. You guys are awesome too. How to navigate your Saturn return. You said it's killing you, never felt so weak in all aspects of life. Pisces, Sun, 3rd house, Saturn and Pisces also in the 3rd house. Okay. So in terms of Saturn return, the only way out is through. Like, that's the only way that I can explain the Saturn return, because it's like you can fight it, but if you fight it, then it's a little bit more intense and it's a little bit more intense. The only thing that I can say that at least helped me during my Saturn return was always like take the path of least resistance, you know? And when I say that, I don't mean like the path of least resistance in terms of like being lazy is really what that is. It's just like, let's say you're faced with 2 decisions and you don't know which way you should go, right? Because it's like during that time, a lot is happening. You're shedding a lot, you're clearing a lot. Certain things might be resurfacing for you because you're being put on your path. That's kind of how I see the Saturn return, okay? So in the 3rd house is your communication, speaking up, and all these types of things. So the path of least resistance, like let's say you have 2 decisions and you're like, which way should I go? The way that I do it is like, I always feel into the energy and I'm like, okay, if I do it this way, it feels like a lot of work. Like I have to go here and then I have to go there and it's going to take this much time to get to this place. And then sometimes the other option is like, okay, it feels smoother. You know, like let's say it's a commute, for example. Oh, it's just 1 bus versus 3, you know? So that's sometimes how I make decisions. Let's see. Okay, career perspective, Gemini. You guys are so funny. Gemini rising with moon in Cancer. Okay, so you wanted to know for your career. Gemini rising, moon in Cancer, Sun and Venus in Pisces, Saturn, Mercury in Aquarius. Okay, something maybe creative, something to do with maybe your mind and your ideas, sharing. You're gonna have to talk. Gemini rising always talks. Gemini risings, you will always see them in different types of careers. So like different types of careers in terms of like sales, marketing, they have to talk, they have to like interact with people. So you have to be somewhere where you're interacting with people is really what that is. Hey, welcome. How are you guys doing? If you guys want your own natal chart reading or progress natal chart reading, the description for all of that is going to be, the information for all that is going to be in the description box below on my website underneath the readings tab. You said you're so prone to overthinking. Are you talking about Scorpio energy? Sun conjunct Pluto in Sagittarius in the 11th house. That gives you undertone of Scorpionic vibes, okay, when you have Sun conjunct Pluto. So you could be intimidating to people, you could be intense. Let's see, you could also be mysterious and have a lot of sexual energy as well. Like Sag also has a lot of sexual energy as well. Aquarius rising, you literally feel like it is, okay, Aquarius rising, you literally feel like a triple Aquarius, given that your moon sign is also an Aquarius, originally ruled by Aquarius. So you're super ahead of your time, super ahead of your time with all that energy in here. I'm just going back up to see what else are you guys saying up here. Thank you guys for the likes and the shares and the subscribes. Oh my gosh, you guys are so funny. I am Balkan. I am represent my people. Let's see. You said, while you think these discussions are critical to our community's involvement, you just realize that we all need to do our own work. Exactly. But the thing is like, when you have these discussions, like, or just like anybody speaking anything, you are triggering like information within another person. Do you know what I mean? Or like, you know, like seeing things from a different perspective. Like I see videos sometimes and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you know, I never knew that, you know? So it's like, it's important, because the thing is, I was just saying this to someone the other day too, in the times that we're living in right now, okay? You know, our voice is really important, because it's like through speaking, you get to purge for yourself. You get to share your experiences, and then through you sharing empowers other people to share, yes, and then also like gives other people ideas, and then it's like this, like you're bouncing off of ideas off of each other. So it's good. In a way, it's healing, purging, transmuting, all the things. I'm Bosnian, Serbian, and Croatian. Gemini Sun and Mercury, Cancer Moon, Mars, Venus, and Jupiter in Leo, and Saturn in Aquarius. You're a lawyer who enjoys creative writing and you hope to publish. How will your work and hobby go? I'd have to look at all of your houses too to see what's going on in there. Okay guys, thank you so much for your questions, for your likes, shares, and subscribes. I'm gonna sign off now. If you guys want your own natal chart reading, progress natal chart reading, feel free to send me an email. It's gonna be in the description box below. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your evening. Oh my gosh, Romanian, yes! I love the Balkans. Yes, definitely visit the Balkans if you guys get the chance to.